Well, let's start with Brexit.
Good morning
then.
and welcome to sunny Lancashire.
Is it sunny in Lancashire this morning?
Well, it's okay. You can see behind me it's another beautiful day.
Good. That sounds like it isn't sunny, but you're trying to tell everybody it's sunny to make people feel positive about it. I wonder if that's a sort of comparison. We know that the North West overwhelmingly voted for Leave, Yorkshire and the Humber, almost 58% voted Leave, the North East, 58% voted Leave. Can you guarantee those areas in the north of England that they will do better than they currently are after Brexit, either under a deal scenario or a no-deal scenario? Because that's what people are most concerned about.
No, obviously, it would be impossible for me to guarantee that. I can't guarantee that the economy, what will happen next week. But what I would say is I think it's a very dangerous proposition to start from the basis that people of the North, who, as you say, overwhelmingly voted for Brexit, didn't know what they're doing. And what I'm doing this week is what I call my tour of the North, where I get rid of my civil servants, I go and talk to people in factories and trade unions around the north of England. And when you go out and talk to the people, they say, look, we knew what we were doing, we wanted to take back control, and that's why we voted to leave.
OK, well, taking back control is an interesting phrase, isn't it, that we keep hearing. Under Theresa May's Chequers plan, a lot of people think we wouldn't be taking back control because we would still be in hock to a certain extent to the EU under a common rule book. So how do you square delivering taking back control with Theresa May's current plan?
Well, what I think people want to see is, first of all, no more vast payments to the European Union. The Chequers plan would end that.
Except there would be a £39 billion
with an
divorce
immigration
bill.
system that works for Britain, and the Chequers plan would do that. Pardon, I didn't hear that.
No, except that we would have to pay a massive divorce bill.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Except we would have to pay a massive divorce bill.
Well, I think that's already priced in. I think when people voted for Brexit, they knew that separating after decades that would be both expensive and complicated. And I think people are now across the north of England looking to the future, taking back control of our borders, no vast payments to the European Union. And I think crucially for the manufacturers of the north of England, looking to the rest of the world for the first time in decades to export our world-beating products from the north of England.
Except that you said at the beginning of this interview that you can't tell the places that you're visiting in the north that they will be better off after Brexit under Theresa May's deal.
Well, as I said, I couldn't, even if we weren't Brexiting, I can't guarantee that tomorrow that anywhere will be better off than today. But what I can say is that there is a feeling of optimism, and when you go and talk to businesses like British Steel over in Saltburn, well, the workers are excited about the thought of having zero tariff under WTO rules for steel products that they produce. There is an optimism across the north of England, reflected both by workers and the businesses, about rising to the undoubted challenge of Brexit, but building a north of England that works for everyone and is better for the future. There are no guarantees in life. Brexit and what happens after Brexit will be determined by our attitude and what we here in Britain decide to do to drive our economy forward. And I think the north of England is perfectly placed, probably better placed than any other region, to take advantage of the challenges and the opportunities of Brexit.
Jake, it's interesting you say there's an optimism about the people you've been speaking to, because we've been up there and we've spoken to a few people as well. This is the Metro Mayor of Liverpool, Steve Rotherham, reacting to you going on your tour. This is what he had to say about your tour.
Jake's in danger of having more tours than the Rolling Stones, and what he needs to do if he's doing some fact-finding is coming to talk to the likes of Metro Mayors in our city region, myself and Andy Burnham, about how we can unlock some of those issues.
So these issues that you're talking about, that you're getting this positive feedback from, it sounds like Steve's thinking that actually, along with this idea of the Northern Powerhouse, it's all a bit of smoke and mirrors, really, and it hasn't achieved much at all in the process of the last few years.
Well, look, I don't need to be taught anything about Liverpool by Steve Rotherham. It was the city in which I was born and brought up, and I had the privilege of starting my career. What I would say is, if you want to see the Northern Powerhouse in action, look at Steve Rotherham, look at Andy Burnham, look at Ben Houchen in the Tees Valley. Just 18 months ago, they didn't exist. We are the first government in history that has been about taking power away from the civil servants and the politicians in Whitehall and returning it back to the people of the north of England, creating these metro mayors. Look, I got into politics to take power away from London and bring it back home here to me in the north of England. Steve Rotherham would do well to remember that. I would say, even though he's not in the same party as me, he's doing a good job, but he's got that power from the government.
All right, well, if you don't want to listen to Steve Rotherham, let's hear from some of the commuters that we spoke to in Liverpool. This was their reaction to the whole idea of a Northern Powerhouse.
In my opinion, I think the Northern Powerhouse is a white elephant. They've never cared about the North, they never will.
I'd like to say to Jake Berry that if London had the issues we had over the summer with Northern Rail, it would have been fixed tomorrow.
I'm not quite sure what the Northern Powerhouse is.
Fantastic idea, but I'd like to actually see something tangible, something that I can see physically and something that actually has an effect on my life, because I don't see anything right now at all.
And that's one of the things, the criticism that comes back. It was a fantastic idea, but where's the tangible results from it? And as one of those commuters said, there's a real feeling in and around the north that had the complications from the rail timetables mess up in the summer happened down south, it would have been sorted a lot quicker than it was up in the north.
Well, what I'd say is, of course, you know, the disruption over the summer was completely unacceptable. And I've apologised for the government's part that we played in that. Of course, there's an independent inquiry looking at why it happened, but it did also happen in the south of England, and the action we've taken in the north of England is exactly the same as the action in the south of England. What I would sort of point out to people who say, let's see the Northern Powerhouse in action, that since we launched the Northern Powerhouse, we've grown our economy here by £22 billion in the north of England. That's a step change in growth. Our foreign investment in our businesses is twice the national average. Again, that's a complete step change in investment. And for people who travel around the north of England, look, I've lived here my whole life. I know that transport problems are nothing new. We're investing more money than any government in history in our rails. But also look at what's already happened on our motorways. Travel around the M60, the M62, the M6 or the A1M in the northeast, and you will see a record investment, more road improvement schemes than we've seen at any time since the 1970s, keeping the north moving, and that has to be about delivering our Northern Powerhouse.
Because you're selling all the sunny uplands, which is absolutely fantastic, and who can blame you? But the cancelled trains for in Northern Rail's timetable fiasco cost businesses £38 million. That was just up until July. One of the key architects of the Northern Powerhouse strategy, Lord O'Neill, former minister, says his patience is nearly exhausted by government figures like you trying to play the game rather than do anything of substance. It's a lot of lovely talk, but actually people are not seeing the tangible results. He says that the money you've announced for education isn't actually new. Northern schools are lagging behind southern schools. The reality is very different from what you're trying to say.
Well, no, well, sorry. Well, I don't agree with you. And what I was trying to point out is that improvements to railways are hard to see. I've been clear. I'm not belittling in any way the trouble that we've seen on the Northern Network. I think it is completely unacceptable, not least because me and my constituents from Rossendale and Darwin have to use it as well as other people across the north of England.
Why didn't Chris Rayling step in earlier and sort that out?
Improvements to the railways are hard to see. Look, well, improvements to the railways are hard to see. That's why I say you can travel around the motorways and see the improvements. The improvements to the railways are happening. And let's be clear about that Northern franchise problem. That was managed jointly by Transport for the North and the government, the delivery of that. I've heard Northern MPs, ministers and government ministers say they are sorry for the disruption that has happened. What I haven't heard, by the way, is a representative of Transport for the North say we are sorry as well for our role on that.
I'm not sure that apologies really work when businesses have lost so much money.
And Steve Rotherham, who are both on the board of Transport for the North, were involved in the delivery of that programme. Now, I don't want to get into a blame game here, But what I would point out is that transport must come, but we have seen huge growth in our economy, which I think is about delivering highly paid, secure jobs to people across the north of England. And for me, if nothing else, that's what the Northern Powerhouse has to deliver.